very smoky in here. Hey, my name is Franci. I'm the CEO and co-founder of BirdBuddy, and I will share my founder story and what's fun about it and what's not so fun about it and what's difficult. I'll try to be honest and transparent about the challenges. I think it's resilience, or what's the title, right? Anytime I get like an invitation to talk about anything like this that's somewhat difficult, it's a great opportunity for me to reflect a little bit. The last 4 or 5 years have been pretty insane for BirdBuddy. We launched in 2020, well, we founded in 2020, we started shipping product in 2022, and we're now a pretty reasonably sized business. So yeah, Franci, I've co-founded 4 companies, raised 35 million of venture capital over the past 10 years, and then generated over 150 million in revenue selling connected bird feeders, if you believe it or not. And it's been a pretty wild journey. It's difficult to be a founder, period, right? I think it's extremely difficult, and this is self-serving obviously, but it's very difficult to be a hardware founder because you're dealing with supply chain and all the things that go wrong, and maybe Trump comes into office and all of a sudden you have 140% tariffs. So it's always difficult, right? And so after raising $35 million from venture capital firms, founding 4 companies, doing 150 million in revenue, shipping 500,000 units around the world, and this is literally a map of BirdBuddy customers and devices all over the US. I still often feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think it's important for founders and for people that are in the business to kind of openly talk about things like this, because I think that a part of resilience is kind of being honest with yourself and with the team, with investors maybe even, right? How things are going and when they're not going fine, or when they're going great. And I think that one of the most important things is knowing that being on this path, especially for a fast growth business, every week, every year is completely different, right? And it's kind of a part of the job. Like, you can't go into this expecting there's going to be a smooth ride, or that you're going to have consultants or partners or whatever to kind of lead you on the way. And it is literally an extremely difficult journey that changes all the time. So you're barely ever in a zone where you've learned something and then you've been doing that for a couple of months and now it's all smooth and it's fine, and then something else happens and you have to learn something again, right? And I think it's, again, something that doesn't get talked about a lot, right, in the founder community. It is a big part of building a resilient team, is just being aware of constant change, being a part of the math, right? It's not something that kind of comes easy, and especially self-serving, right? For a hardware founder going through COVID, so the first time we were raising cash was COVID. The second time was Russia attacked Ukraine, and then the third time is now, and Trump is in the office, and the world is blowing up. Anyway, so it is by definition something that you can't really speak with a lot of confidence to, and you have to continuously learn, right? And I think that one of the main core assets for you as a founder is to just keep going, right? Everything that comes by, every challenge that you face, that you kind of keep moving on, right? And as you're working with a team, and again, partners, investors, vendors, like you're building this huge, beautiful company, customers, obviously, right? It's super important to kind of keep that level of sanity. Embrace the storm and stay calm, yeah. So in the past 4 years, right, we went from having no product and having a beautiful product market fit. We launched on Kickstarter to great success, right? Had a lot of new customers come in, a lot of excitement, and then took 2 years to go to market. Within those 2 years, we had to develop the whole thing, the app, the hardware, make sure that it's something that the customers want, and then shipped 100,000 units in a span of 2 months. After that, shipping another 400,000 in the next couple of years, and it is extremely difficult to kind of keep going, but you have to, right? And I think that one of the core things you have to kind of keep focus on is to know that these things are difficult, that there is doubt, right? Even when you're winning, and I think that actually makes a great founder, if you ask me, right? It's a blessing and a curse, right? That you're never really happy, even when it's great and it's success, right? It could have been a little bit more. And then burnout, obviously, I don't know, if any of you have ever founded a business, you know that that's always there, right? There's always this feeling of just the next milestone, right? And I'll get there. And it's super important to have a network of people to kind of lean on, to be able to kind of work through this and have a team that can support you. And I think that I can speak for myself that I'm extremely fortunate to have all of those things, right? Ego is a big thing, right? And I'll remember one of our investors, the biggest investors, well, not anymore, but it is a big investor in BirdBuddy, is General Catalyst. And it's a huge, one of the largest like tier A funds in the US. And I remember getting a recommendation to them, and I saw the message that somebody sent out to the general partner in that fund, and he described me as a low ego person, which is probably what kind of got me into the door, right? And I think it's super, and I don't think I'm very low ego, but I think I'm maybe relatively low ego for this industry, I don't know. And super important to keep that in check as well, right? So just a couple of things that I think are super important to be mindful of. And yeah, success isn't about avoiding these, right? It's about recognizing them and dealing with them. It is a critical path to success, right? And kind of to go into the final piece of my short talk, looking from the outside in, right? Things are always very shiny. And we did 50+ million in revenue last year, right? We're really growing our ARR in a significant way. I'm very proud of all the success the company's achieved, right? I'm super proud of the team, right? There is a lot of work that's happening in the background, right? And there are things that are absolutely fundamental to that success without which we wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't dare kind of look over the next kind of couple of months or couple of years, right? And be kind of happy about it, right? So, but I see people looking from the outside in, and I often have conversations with kind of founders who are maybe a couple of years before us or haven't really started yet, right? Who really glamorize the position that we're in, and it is, I am extremely proud, and I'm sure there's reason to envy us, right? But it is really, really difficult, right? And as you grow, there's a lot of personal growth that goes with that, right? And the kind of core fundamentals that I think contribute the most to being able to overcome all of this is a strong team. I think that's so important. And again, when I look back, there are moments where somebody gave me advice that at the time I thought that doesn't apply to me, or maybe that's not relevant or whatever, right? Almost always it turned out to be the case that I was wrong, and it just wasn't the right time for that to apply to me, right? And by that I mean that building a team takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, right? And as a founder who's serious about building a large business, one of the core things is to spend a ton of time finding the right talent, right? Finding the right people, getting them excited, making sure that they're motivated. If you don't do that, all these other things like burning out and creating kind of issues for yourself and the team are going to happen, right? You need amazing people that are the foundation of this business, that are basically the bottom piece of this huge iceberg, right? Strong culture, that has to come from the founder, right? Has to come from the top down, has to come from the executive team, and it's a reflection on what kind of team you've built at the top, right? And it's also one of those things that is super important to get people, to grind, because sometimes you have to really grind, and you have to be super focused, and there's a period of months when people don't really do much other than work, but everybody does it because there's this really strong culture, and importantly, a shared vision, right? And I think that that's kind of the last piece of the team fundamentals, right? To make sure that everybody is kind of aligned and rowing in the same direction. The last piece is empathy. And I have a short text that I'll read out, so I'll step over here. So this is one This is a message I received from one of our investors a year and a half ago, when there was like a really tough moment for the company, right? There's a lot of kind of ups and downs, and you go through these moments where it's kind of really intense, right? And yeah, it was a long message, which I can summarize as don't be nice, be kind, and I'll read it out. So don't be nice, be kind. I realize that nice avoids, nice keeps its surface, nice distracts. But kindness, you can do all kinds of hard things with kindness. Kindness is being direct, but with compassion. Kindness is separating the good person from the bad idea. Kindness is being curious when you feel like being judgmental. Kindness is a second chance, but not a third, which I've learned the hard way. That's also very important. But kindness is not weakness. In fact, for a leader, especially in difficult moments, it's one of the greatest strengths of all. I'm still figuring it out. Sometimes I'm still nice when I should be kind. Sometimes I'm neither kind or nice, but at least now I know the difference. And I still have it in my WhatsApp from like a year and a half ago, and every once in a while I go and check it out, right? It is, I can't Google it, so it's not something that somebody just pasted from some random Reddit post or something like that. Genuinely, somebody wrote that kind of landed in my message from a friend. And I keep it as a resource for times when things are hard, right? And I need resilience, and the team needs resilience, and it's an important tool to kind of remind myself that these are two different things, right? And you can be kind and also be, strong and do the right thing when maybe somebody else doesn't see it that way. Anyway, that's it for me. I really appreciate the time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. I think we have a couple of minutes. But anyway, yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. That was a bit spontaneous, but that's no problem. See, that's when I start throwing my stuff around, out of interest. Do we have any Slido questions? If so, we can take them. If not, I'd be quite interested. You told me early on, I had a little joke. I said, bird buddy, wouldn't that be bad if you would actually be shooting the birds? And you said, no, turns out most of our competitors actually do exactly that. Isn't that a bit of a weird thing, having competitors that actually try and harm the ones you try and protect and help?
So I have another story that's related to that. I think we were at CES like in 2022 in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And we had a lot of people not from the States, but like from different regions of the world with different cultures coming and asking, how do you capture the bird? Because effectively they thought we built the product that allowed them to capture the bird so they can eat it. To your point, there are a lot of hunting companies in the US that are selling trick cams and trail cams and all that have repurposed that to sell it as bird feeders. It is, I see, so for me, building the company from the bottom up and the brand from the bottom up, that's all about helping people connect with nature and notice nature, right, and learn about it. I think it's a major competitive advantage.
I was just going to ask you, because you're probably building products differently when you actually want to help your, let's call them the client.
Totally.
The birds, than if you're trying to just eat them. So what makes you different on that aspect, just from a technical point of view?
That's a good question. I think that for the most part, for the most part, it's all about enabling that connection. More so from a hardware point of view, more so from a software point of view than from a hardware point of view, right? Really trying to nail the balance of what it is to experience nature and how much we want to put focus on one thing versus the other. We just had to obviously everybody asks us about how much subscriptions we have, and I'm pretty happy about that number right now. But I sometimes feel dirty because I know people are paying for stuff that I don't think that it's good value, right? So really, for a while there, we were really strict about how we designed our product to make sure that it really emphasizes the best possible customer experience. And then we started adding on stuff, and I think it paid off, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm seeing we have a Slido question just pop up. Which hard moment were you referring to in your talk? What happened and how did you overcome? You just said you felt dirty, so it wasn't that?
No. So this 2023, so we came out of COVID, right? And in COVID, nobody knew it at the time, but money was extremely cheap and fundraising was very easy, right? And we had this major growth spur, but it was easy to get money on the market. And then, going back to what I said at the beginning, you can rarely find somebody who goes from through the journey of building a company from 0 to 100 million, right, in a couple of years or in a year. And somebody who does that twice is even rarer, right? So all of these different moments or challenges that you face are usually the first time. And for us, that was 2023 when the company ballooned effectively, and we had 100 and something employees, too much, right? And just because we didn't really, we didn't manage the team, we weren't really kind of mindful of how we did that, and it was effectively throwing bodies at the problem, right? So we have an issue, let's hire 5 more people. We have this problem, let's hire 5 more people, right? And little to no management. So yeah, Q1 2024, we had to really restructure, and that was super difficult, right? Obviously, letting a large chunk of the company go, critical. I don't think we would be here today if we didn't do that at the time, but it was very difficult. And that was also when the message came that I read, yeah.
I'm curious, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of founders, especially US-based founders, suddenly saying our companies are AI first.
Yeah.
And they're reshaping their companies saying, if you're not using AI, you shall be replaced by it now.
Yeah.
So what are you doing on AI? I'm curious, what kind of impact does that have on your company? And
I think BirdBuddy is an OG AI company because like BirdBuddy recognizes birds through AI, right? So it classifies them, adds them to your collection. So you're almost like playing Pokemon, right? And collecting birds around your home. And we did that like 4 years ago, right, or 5 years ago. So we were very early on in leveraging this technology to drive like real value for our customers, right? And it's become such an integral piece of the business that we don't even talk about it. Like we don't talk about AI, we just have AI, and it's really compelling and it's really useful, but we don't see ourselves as an AI-first company because AI is enabling a core experience, but it's not, we're not building AI per se, right? But yeah.
And maybe one last question to kind of round it up that just came on Slido. You mentioned company growth equals personal growth. Do you see any personal plateau? And where do you see BirdBuddy in 3 years?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I see plateaus at every stage, right? What has so far always happened is you kind of grow as a business and as an individual, right? And then you get to a point where things become really difficult, and then you break through, right? And so far, that moment where the restructuring in Q1 2024 was definitely one of those moments for us, right? I didn't know that I could take the company through that, but I did, right? And successfully. And then all of the things that happened last year were kind of similar to that. But like we are probably now in the kind of middle of that cycle, right? We had a really good year. We have a really good year right now, and I totally expect us to encounter something I don't expect, which will require more growth in the next 6 months.
And maybe just to follow up on that, because there was also the question, where do you see BirdBuddy in 3 years? Which is one of these questions, but still, it's hard to probably say that now more than ever.
So what I can say is that despite our relatively large sales, right, we're still growing 100% year over year, right? And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. So we've just launched another Kickstarter campaign, which really expands the product lineup to all kind of nature in your yard, right? So it's more so like a general purpose nature camera that lets you connect with everything that's out there. So that's definitely like a major R&D new product venture, right? But yeah, I don't see. We'll probably grow 100% this year and probably 100% next year, and then maybe not 100% in 2027 or 2028. But yeah, it seems pretty certain.
And speaking of growth, let's just take that last question as well. As mentioned, a strong team is one of the most important factors. What trait do you prioritize the most when selecting a new employee?
Yeah, sincerity. I don't know.
Sincerity.
Yeah.
How do you double check on that?
You don't. But you can't. You cannot check for it during the interview. But I think after a month of working whether that person says it like it is, and then it's easy, because that's the only barrier I think to a good relationship.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those insights.
Totally.
It's
Thank you.
been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Franci. Thank you.